welcome to the Michelle G Show. It is so wonderful to be back this year, or to be back this month. You guys, excuse me. We've had some little bit of technical difficulties, and I'm a little bit thrown off, but we're gonna roll along with the show. Um, I'm super excited about the show tonight because it's gonna come from a serious topic. You never know what's going on behind closed doors. And tonight's guest is Miss Yamitra Waddell. And she's going to talk about some things that she went through. She's going to talk about with domestic violence, that type of thing. And then she's going to also talk about what she's doing now and how she turned her story around. And now she's helping others. So we're going to get into that. I'm going to read a little bit of her bio. I'm going to go to a quick break. And then when we return, we're going to be joined by my guest, Miss Yamitra Waddell. So the rest of the show, I'm probably going to call her Miss JoJo, if that's all right with y'all, because I got it right 2 times, and I don't want to mess that up. So I'm just going to probably call her Miss JoJo, okay? I'm going to read a little bit about her, and then we're going to bring her on. Miss JoJo is an award-winning transformational coach, 2-time best-selling author, seasoned entrepreneur with over 20 years of industrial experience. Ms. JoJo Waddell is the founder and CEO of Be Fearless Incorporated and Waddell Consulting Services, and host of the Fearless Morning Show. Ms. Waddell uses speaking as a way to show others how to transform their thinking and transition from victim mentality to survivor mentality to overcome. She is passionate about sharing her message and why she is the only live past crazy specialist. And that's what I really want to get into, because I've never heard that before, and that just drew my attention. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be back with the Michelle G Show. Welcome back to the Michelle G Show. And as you can see, I have been joined by my guest, Miss JoJo Waddell. And I'm going to get right into this conversation because an hour is going to go by real quick. And her story is so touching. So I really want to touch on everything that I can in this 1 hour. The first thing I want to ask you about is, for those people who are listening who don't know your story.
Yes.
Can you give us a little bit of a background of what some of the stuff that you've been through?
Okay. So I met my abuser. First, thank you for having me on the show.
Everybody.
So I met my abuser at church. He was the pastor of my church. From the first day we started dating until we got married was 3 months. And we were married and living almost 400 miles away from my family. And so during that time, we the abuse got worse. And so when the first time he hit me, I was like, oh, I can't believe you hit me. I can't believe you. But of course, they always apologize. And then when I moved 400 miles away, then that's when the abuse really started to take place, because then my family had no idea where I was at. I wasn't allowed to talk to them. And if I did, he was on the phone with me, to monitor the conversation. So during that time, the abuse got bad, from wanting to prostitute me out at the Army base to keeping me locked up in the room, to raping me in front of my 3-month-old daughter, till I was allowed to eat once a day, use the bathroom once a day. So I know crazy, Michelle. I know crazy.
And that just and you guys and I've heard an interview with her talking about her story. But to sit here with you and to talk about it, it gives me chills. I can't say that I've ever been through that type of abuse that you have. I know abuse though.
Right.
I grew up in a home with it.
Yes.
You know, I know different forms of abuse, physical,
Right.
mental,
Yes.
Emotional, sexual.
Yes.
You know, so I've experienced it. But the thing that strikes out to me, that stands out to me, is how you said he moved you away, and a lot of people don't understand that that's a sign.
Yes.
That's a sign because it's isolation.
Yes. It is very
It's
much.
isolation. Now, when you were going through that, and when you mentioned prostituting you out, okay. Can you, if you're okay talking about that a little bit, what was the situation that surrounded
So, when I first married my husband, his mother had just passed away. And so she had left him a life insurance policy of $25,000. And that was the money that we used to move to the next city. And so that money went to, even the church paid for some of our stuff. They didn't cover everything. So we had to pay for, our stuff and then food. And so $25,000 doesn't go very far at all. And so when all the money was gone, he got angry and said, you know what, you just married me for my money and I want my mama's money back. And he was going to take me to the store and buy me the fishnet pantyhose and the short skirt. And he said, I'm going to take you to the military base and you're going to get my $25,000 back. And so luckily, thank God, I think somebody died in the church and he didn't go through with it for that weekend. But that's exactly where I was headed.
that was his plan?
That was his plan.
And that's, now, I want to touch on the part about the church, because he was the pastor.
He was the pastor.
Now, I know church.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an elder.
Mm-hmm.
So I know church.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't understand, and that's why I said that you never know what goes on
Right.
behind closed doors.
Right.
What was that like? Because I know in church you have this image.
Yes.
You have to be, you were first lady.
Yes.
So you had to carry yourself a certain way. You had to speak a certain way.
Yes.
And being that you've already told us how controlling he was, how was that? How did you hold your character when all this stuff was going on?
It was, well, you don't really have a choice. An abuser, they don't give you a choice about the life that you're living. Like, everything is controlled. So from the time we got to church, I was in his church office most mornings, before Sunday school, because I would teach Sunday school, he would teach Sunday school. And if I did something the night before, that didn't mean I didn't get slapped in the church office, and I was in there putting on extra makeup before I came out. So I wore the big hats tilted to the side. I wore the extra makeup. And so it was hard, because if you were to meet him, he is the most articulate, well-dressed individual you will ever meet. And then when he gets up in the pulpit and says, to my lovely wife, Yamitra, whom I owe everything to. Without you, I'm nothing. And every woman in the church is like, oh my God, you have the sweetest husband. I mean, and you're sitting on the front row. There's nothing I'm going to the altar to pray, Lord, save me out of this marriage. And then I got the elders of the church, I call them the sweet sisters, because they older sisters, praying that I'm a better wife to my husband. I was like, we praying for two totally different things. And it was really hard.
I can't even imagine. And I'm so glad that we're doing this show, because I know that you may not be married to a pastor that's
Right.
abusing you. But there's ladies and there are women out there who are being abused at this time. And that's why I believe that your story is so profound. Now, what I want to get into before we go to the break, I want to get into what is a living past crazy specialist.
So
That I want to know, because I'm like, it catches your ear when you say it, and I'm like, well, what is that? What is a living past crazy specialist?
I chose that name on purpose and on accident. It was just something. I do the Fearless Morning Show on Facebook every morning, And so it was just something I said, and it kind of stuck. And I tell people, I know crazy. I know what it's like to, have the nice house, the diamonds, the earrings, the whole first lady to do outfit. I know what that is. And I know what it's like to go live in a shelter and have to ask somebody else for undergarments and a toothbrush and a comb and diapers. So I've been from one extreme to the other, and in between that trying to commit suicide. So I know crazy. If I don't know nothing else, I know crazy. But I also know that you can live past it. I ain't gonna say it's pretty work. I ain't gonna say it's easy work. But I'm saying you can live past crazy.
And with you saying that, and then I'm gonna take a quick break, but with you saying that, it just amazes me because how did you keep your mind? Because just talking to you, you like you said, you've gone from, marrying somebody, even though it was quick, but marrying somebody that you thought loved you, was going to protect you. His is a man of the cloth. He's a man of God. He's standing before the people, and he's preaching God's word. And, so you think, I got, the one, because we're going to walk in the way of the Lord. And then he knocks you upside your head. And then you go from that, and then you and your child is living in a shelter. You're thinking about taking your life. How did you keep your mind?
Well, one of the things when I was with my ex-husband, my abuser, the shower was the only place that I was allowed technically by myself. And I'm not ashamed to say that for 2 years I didn't take a bath. I just got in the shower, and I was standing. There was a window like this big before we moved further away, and I would just stand there and I would just chant out the window, I know I'm not crazy. I know I'm not crazy. JoJo, you're not crazy. I'm not crazy. And I would hear him yell, it's time to get out, time to get out the shower. And I would just get out. I wouldn't take a bath. I would just get out and come back out. But afterwards, what kept me going is I had a 7-year-old and I had a 3-month-old preemie who had, when I left, she'd only been out of the hospital 30 days. And so I figured if I survived almost dying, I gotta keep going. I got to just take it one day at a time. And that's exactly what I did.
Wow. You guys, this is, and you can't see past my glasses, but my eyes are teary because I can't imagine, like I said, I know abuse. I lived it at a young age, but I can't imagine being with the person who proclaimed to love me and having to be treated like a prisoner. Yes. You were a prisoner. It's just Absolutely. As if you were locked up in a federal prison and you were told when to eat, when to use the bathroom, when to take a bath, how long to take a bath, and I said I was going to take a quick break, but I do want, you just said something and it triggered something. So how did it work with you going to work?
I went when he wanted me to. So if I was a good wife and I was able to go to work, then I went to work and I had to come, straight home. But if there was something that he was upset about and he didn't want me to go to work, then I didn't go to work. Or he would say, you need to find you a way to work. And my job was almost 35, 40 minutes away. And he wouldn't let me have his car. I couldn't call a taxi. I couldn't call a friend. But he wanted me to go to work. And if I didn't go to work, my paycheck had to be the same amount it would have been had I worked a full 40 hours. Because had the money amount changed, then he was really going to be mad because it was my job to work and pay the bills, and it was his job to be the pastor of the church. So.
Wow. Okay. There is so much in that I want to ask. We're going to take a quick break, and when I come back, we're going to finish with my guest, JoJo Waddell. We'll be right back with the Michelle G. Show. welcome back to the Michelle G Show. We're talking with my guest Miss JoJo Waddell, and we're talking about the stuff that she has been through. Um, this her story is so your story is so amazing to me. I can't fathom
Right.
going through that. And we all know that there's different forms of abuse, from like just small things like verbal. Well, that's not small. I'm not belittling that, but like
Right.
this, what you went through to me is on one of those severe levels.
Right.
Now, you were saying that when you were before the break, you were telling us about how you were supposed to go to work, but if you had done something that he didn't like, then you had to find your own way to work, or you
Yes.
could not go to work. But he expected your paycheck to be the same,
Yes.
and it was your job. Now, what I have an issue with is we preach the word, and the word said the man that does not work does not eat, and it also says that the man is the provide. You know, God sets up the order. It's God, man, and then family.
Yes.
So he was the one. He put you in that position to take care of the bills and all of that, while he just pastors.
Yes. Well, his thing was, and I think this is why you've got to really know the word for yourself, is that he used the Bible for everything that was beneficial for him. So the man who doesn't work doesn't eat. So if I didn't work, I didn't eat that day. So he worked because he was a man of God. So he worked every day because he was a pastor, and he said that required his full attention. So that was his job, and his salary from the church would cover some of the bills, and I was to cover the rest of
and, and I'm okay with you all helping each other, because that's what you do.
Yes.
We're here to be helped meet.
Right.
But you got to do something for me to help you meet it. You can't
Yes.
just expect for me to do it all.
Right.
And then when I don't do it, then you have an issue.
Right.
And I think the thing that I have a problem with is still the thing that, but you love me. And you're preaching God's word. Where in God, and we know this all the time. That's how a lot of denominations get started. They take one scripture that benefits them and build a
Yes.
whole denomination on
Yes.
it. But you take the word and you stand before the people, but at the same time, your family is suffering. You're suffering. The mother of your children is suffering.
Yes.
For me, that's so hard to wrap my mind around.
Because he didn't. I don't think he thought of it as that way, because to him it was all my fault. So I was the problem. So a house divided cannot stand. That was one of the last times, and I almost, he tried to kill me 3 times, and so this was the second time. No, this is the last time. He said, well, to get to the story, let me tell you this. I just had youngest child, because I had a child when we got married. Had a youngest child. She was been in the hospital for 30 days. I'm 3 weeks out of the hospital. I almost died having her. And they was like, Miss Waddell, you can't work because you lost so much blood. I refused a blood transfusion. So you need to get your rest. And he was like, well, you need to go to work. So I got a job. And he came to pick me up from work. And when he picked me up from work, I saw him coming. So I ran to the back. I got my purse because I didn't want to be late walking out the door. And I walk out the door, and he's talking to the office people, because a former church member got me the job. And I get in a car, and he says, where were you at? And I said, I went to go get my purse. He was like, no, you walked away when you saw me pull up. I said, to grab my purse so I could be ready. And he was like, no, stop lying to me. And he hit me across the face while he was driving. I said, no, I really went to go get my purse. And he was like, you gonna learn to stop lying to me. And he hit me again in the throat. And by this time we're at a stoplight, and he was like, one day you gonna learn to not lie to me. He hit me again in his chest. Now he had rings on these 2 fingers, so when he hit me, he's leaving indentions right here. And so he was like, I'm sick of you. So he pulls into behind the store at this intersection, pull behind the store, and there's nobody back there. And he takes my head and pushes against the wall and starts hitting me in my chest. You're not gonna lie to me. And so we get home, and the baby's in the back seat of the car. The oldest one is still at daycare. And so we get in the house, and I'll never forget this. We have an L-shaped couch, and then there's the ottoman here. And he puts the baby down in her car, still in her car seat, sits her in a chair. And he said, you think this is funny, don't you? I said, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, you think this is funny? And I'm trying to walk down walk past him, and he grabs me by the sit on my head and pulls me down the hallway by my hair and throws me on the bed, and he sits on me. Now, he's a 250-pound man, and he sits down on top of me, and he chokes me until I pass out. And then when I come to, he's standing against the wall, breathing hard, and he said, you should thank Jesus that he saved your life, because I was going to kill you. And so I'm trying to catch my breath, trying to figure out what's going on. And he said, get up. I was like, what? He's like, get up, because we need to go before the Lord naked and pray, because a house divided cannot stand. So he made me take off all my clothes, and we got down on our knees, and we prayed that God would make me a better wife so that he wouldn't have to hit me anymore. So he absolutely used the word of God to his benefit all the time. I was the divided house. And then he broke it down. Then he made me go get the Bible, and he broke the scripture down to show me, where it's my fault. And, where I should be glad that he loves me and he takes care of me. And that, because, and there's some things that they will say that you always remember. You ugly, you're fat, you're never going to be anybody, your mama don't love you, your daddy don't love you, and he would just say that. And so you learn to just agree, because that keeps you from getting hit again and to live another day.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's hard to take in. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people ask me, well, how can you tell the story and not be emotional? Mm-hmm. Well, I don't have a choice. I have to tell the story so that I can help somebody else, because their case may not be like mine, but it all starts out exactly the same. It all starts out with, well, I love you. Oh, do you have to spend all your time with your family? Why can't we always be together? Why can't we always do this? And before you know it, they have all of your time and all of your attention. And so now you're in their structure. So it always starts the same.
Yeah, that was going to be the next thing I say, because you're being so, you're talking and you're talking about it, but even me, I'm tearing up, mm-hmm. because I can't imagine, mm-hmm. all that you're going through, mm-hmm. and that you went through,
right.
And that you're sitting here next to me as a survivor.
Right.
I think the next question I want to ask, one, is he still pastoring? No. Or do you even keep in contact or know anything about his situation, or, where he is?
Not that I know of. Mm-hmm. Just because when I left, and of course our denominations is filled with bishops and elders, so he had to he tried to have me kicked out of the denomination, because he told them I ruined his ministry, because he had been a minister for over 30 years. So it wasn't like he was a young minister. And I was young. I was 25, and he was 51 when we got married.
Wow.
So 52 and 26 when we had a baby. So, I already had that stigma of, why are you married to an older man, number one. Number two, you going to be a first lady, and you how old? So you not fixing to tell me nothing about running a church. First of all, no, you can't be over the missionaries. No, you can't teach Sunday school. So I'm having to deal with all of that. And the fact that my family's 400 miles away. Haven't talked to them. I haven't seen them. And so this is the only person I have. So, and then he has control over everything from, I was allowed $3 out of my paycheck. So he had control over. What was you supposed to do with that? That was my gas money to get me back and forth to work.
$3?
Mm-hmm. And I worked almost 40 minutes away with evening traffic.
It's hard for me to even contain myself, because it angers me, mm-hmm. and I don't like to be, but it mm-hmm. angers me.
Yes,
because that someone can, for one, and I have to go back to being a person of the cloth and teaching and preaching the word, because mm-hmm. that's who I am. Mm-hmm. And I can't imagine, and I know that when you have to go before the people and I have to speak, I make sure that everything is right, because what comes out my mouth is going on to those people. Yes. So I can only imagine over the years, mm-hmm. just hearing what you're saying about him, he had a warped sense of who he was, and his thinking was completely off. He was insane, and you're spewing all of that over the people. Can you imagine? I know he damaged your life, all the people before you, just speaking in the pulpit, spewing that out. How many lives you damaged by your way of thinking?
And then you have to realize too that he's been doing this for 30 years. No one's going to believe my story over his story. And he has been a pastor of huge churches. It ain't like when we got married at my home church, it was a smaller church. And so we had two smaller churches till we moved to a slightly bigger church. But he has been pastoring, nice sized denominations. And, this is a guy, like I said, if you met him, he has sung for President Reagan. He sings, he can sing, he can articulate, he can break the scripture down. It ain't like he's not telling you the right word of God. It's just how he's applying it in his home life. Yes, when he's at home, that's how he's applying it. He's just living, and he was A-okay with living a totally different life.
Okay. What I want to ask next, and then I want to get into some other aspects of you, because you're more than just than that.
Yes.
You have moved on, and now you're doing, other things. So what I want to ask now, and then we're going to move on from that, because I want to talk to JoJo, the author.
Okay.
And the talk show host.
Yes.
I want to talk to her.
Okay.
But first, what was that breaking point? What was that straw that broke the camel's back, per se, that caused you to finally say, you know what, I'm done, I'm gone?
It was two events in one. So the first time I left was shortly before my birthday, June 26th. My birthday is June 29th. And I left. I'd been, so one of my, I guess, punishments you could say is I had to sit with him for 8 hours a day and listen to him talk to me for 8 hours a day. And during those 8 hours, he would tell me, you're ugly, you're stupid. And so I'd have to pay attention so I could repeat back what he said. And I wasn't allowed to go to the bathroom by myself because I didn't use the bathroom the way he wanted me to. Once he saw me use the bathroom, he was like, why are you sitting on the toilet like that? And I said, well, this is how I sit on the toilet. He was like, I don't want you to sit on the toilet like that. I want you to sit this way. And so I had to leave the door open to make sure I sat on the toilet the right way, the way he wanted me to. And so the baby's home from the hospital, and I was like, can I please go to the bathroom? We moved to another city, and it's a 3-level, and my oldest daughter slept on the bottom level because he said she wasn't good enough to sleep on the top level with us. And so she stayed locked up in her room the whole 2 years of our marriage as well. And so he let me go to the bathroom, and the way the house was, it was all kind of connected. And I went in there, and I looked in the mirror, and I was like, I can't take this anymore. I'm going to go crazy. And I walked out the front door. And I took the car keys. I'm in a city I don't know. The first hospital I pull up to was closed. So, because they've closed it down. So I find all the signs that say hospital. I check myself in, tell the man what's going on. Of course, he doesn't believe me. He was like, whatever you do, don't call your abuse. I was like, I'm not going to call him. He was like, yeah, that's what y'all all say. And so I get to the back, and my phone is just steady ringing. And what I do, I answer the phone and tell him where I'm at. Because I left both of the girls there. So he comes to the hospital. Well, they do a psych evaluation because I tell them I feel like I'm going crazy. They do a psych evaluation. That is the best sleep I ever had in my entire life because they let me sit in this room for like 6 hours and sleep. And he comes with the kids, and the law of North Carolina says whoever has the baby keeps the baby in their hands. So I was allowed to take my oldest with me, but they wouldn't give me the youngest because he was holding her, and he's the father, and there's nothing I could do. So I left with the oldest. I went to visit some church members. I went to a shelter, and then the church members came and picked me up, and they tried to convince me not to go back. I went back because I left a baby there. I went back. We went back with the intent of him going to counseling. I'm going to go to counseling. I said, okay, you can't hit me anymore. By this time, social services in your pocket because you've told them that. So he's convinced me, if you tell them what I'm really doing to you, they're going to take our children. So I lie. And the man was like, how could you lie on a man of God like that? Like, why would you do that? So we go to a counselor. And, of course, any abuser would tell you that there are rules. So the rules to the counselor was I was not allowed to talk. So he could talk. I couldn't say anything. So eventually the counselor said, Miss Waddell, you are mentally unstable. You are not. I don't know a better word for saying mentally retarded, but that's what she told me. She said I wasn't capable of taking care of myself or my family, and she felt sorry for my husband for having to take care of me. And so, fast forward, we come home, and here's what broke the straws back. That's when he told me I need to pay his money back, and we didn't go. And then we were arguing that night, and I finally, in between, I finally told, since I had told a church member, she had called another friend of mine and told her what was going on. And so that night he comes in. Well, that day we've been arguing all day, and it's the middle of the day, and he said, let's go upstairs. He has insomnia, so he doesn't sleep unless he takes his sleeping pills. And he takes me upstairs, and he ties my hands up. He puts the baby in front of the bed, and he throws me across the bed, so I'm landing facing her. So these are two windows here. This is my bed. This is the baby, and this is the closet with white doors. And he said, we can do this the easy way. And he said, but this is what's going to happen. And he sodomized me in front of her. And I just remember laying there thinking, if I make this out alive, I hope you never remember this. So when it's over with, he won't let me clean myself up. He won't let me do anything. He nicely picks up the telephone, and he calls the counselor. And he says, Miss Waddell has just had a nervous breakdown, and I want to commit her to a mental hospital. Can you make that happen tonight? And it was a weekend. Is the only reason why I was not committed to a mental hospital. So he finally lets me take a shower, and I'm standing there, I'm looking out the window, and right below our window is the garage, the concrete where our cars are. And I was like, if I jump out this window, is it really going to hurt? Because it can't be, because earlier he had just slammed my head into the concrete wall while I was holding the baby. I said, it can't hurt any worse than this. And he was in the bathroom, so I tried to lift the window, and Jesus, you trying to kill yourself, and Jesus has locked all the windows. I cannot get them open at all. And so he finally goes to sleep, and the next morning the phone rings at 7:26 a.m. on July 26th. And it is the former church member. We were praying together. And she is my firecracker friend. Miss Waddell, if you do not leave this man today, I'm calling the police. No, you. And I'm trying to convince her not to. And she was like, I'm calling the police. You're leaving there today, or I'm coming down there today. Which one do you want? I said, I can't leave. I don't have any keys. Because I don't have access to anything. And she was like, well, where is he? And I was like, well, he's asleep. So I find the keys. The keys are on the third floor in his recliner. I had to turn the recliner upside down, and inside the pocket of the recliner were my car keys. And so I grabbed the car keys, and I was going to run out the door in my pajamas. I was like, okay, Jojo, at least put on a bra and a T-shirt and some jeans. And so I go to my oldest, and I said, pick one toy. She's like, where are we going? I was like, just pick one toy. Because I wasn't allowed to touch her, wasn't allowed to talk to her. So for me and my oldest to have private time, we used to just hug and hold hands and talk. And for the baby, I wasn't allowed to touch and hold her either, because it was my job. He didn't want her to become attached to me, because it was my job to train his new wife that he was going to find after he killed me. So he didn't want her attached to me. And so I grabbed the baby. I grabbed a bottle, a can of milk, and 3 diapers. And I stand at that front door. And I cried my eyes out for 15 minutes. And I say, I can't do this. I said, when I open the door, it's going to say door open. And he worked out every day. So he wasn't a slow man. He was very fit. I was like, he's going to come down these stairs. Because he always promised me, if you leave with my kids, I'm never going to stop hunting you down, and I will kill you. And I was like, okay, I can't do it. She was like, you're leaving. And I told my oldest, I said, okay, when I open this door, I want you to just run, take off running. And when I open the door, I hear it say, door open. And I still have the phone in my hand. I got a diaper bag. I got a baby and my 7-year-old. And we take off running across the front yard to the car. I grabbed my pocketbook. Was the only thing. I left diamond rings, diamond earrings. I left all of it. I get in the car, and I get 1.5 miles away, and the police pull me over. And I am over the top hysterical. And he was like, you're speeding. I had no insurance, no tag, no registration. And if I went over 50, the front wheel would fall off. And I only had about $5 worth of gas in the car. And I had not one dime to my name. And so I told him what was going on. Yeah. He was like, baby, just go. So that $5 worth of gas and that broken wheel took me an hour away to the next city.
That was God.
Yes, to where I was able to use a payphone and call the girl who, I was just on the phone when I was like, I left. She was like, you did? I was like, you told me to leave. What are you doing? Like, I'm getting killed because you didn't think I was. She was like, no, Miss Whitehead, calm down. I just didn't think you would actually leave. And so from there, life started over. But those two series were the breaking point. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I can't even imagine. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk to JoJo, the author.
Okay.
All right. We'll be right back with the Michelle G Show. Welcome back to the Michelle G Show. I still have my wonderful guest, and the more I talk to her, the more amazing she is to me. Miss JoJo Waddell. Now, during our break, we had a little off-camera discussion, and we're going to jump into one thing, but I'm going to jump back over into something else because being in the ministry and knowing that the Holy Ghost is, dwells within me.
Yes.
We were talking about discernment, and what we wanted to we couldn't fathom. And we was talking to Miss, and I said, when I say we, I'm talking about my wonderful producer and of this show, Miss Regina Sunshine Robinson. We were talking because we're trying to figure out how Lord, and I have my little words. How in the Sam Hill can you be in church? We wanted to know, where was the discernment? Because there's one thing that I pray for a lot, and I always pray, and I pray for it for my children. I've taught them to pray for it. Is, Lord, sharpen my discernment so I know who's around me, who's for me, who's against me, what I need. Before it even comes out their mouth, I've already discerned that what you get ready to say is a lie.
Yes.
So I pray for this.
Yes.
And when you're filled with the Holy Ghost, He tells you things. He talks to you.
Yes.
And what we wanted to know is how How in the world can you be in church with all these the mothers and the elders and all that, and nobody discerned that something was wrong? Now, I know he preached the word. Yeah, like you said earlier, he did preach the word like it, like it was. He just lived a different life
Yes,
outside of that.
yes.
But even in that, his spirit won't right. Even preaching that word. So you should have been able. Was there anybody in the church that could discern that something won't right about this man?
Not a person, not a soul came up to me and said, "Hey, sister, are you okay? Is everything all right?" Because, like I was telling you, I wasn't left alone with church people very much. He was always by my side, or I knew the look that he gave me to come stand by me. And so, with the elders of the church or the older people, I wasn't allowed to. If we talked, it was just passing talk. Hey, sister, how you doing? I'm fine. How you? It was never. I didn't have a friend in any of the churches that we served. And you got to realize we started in my home church. So my home church is small. And so these are the ladies that I grew up who taught me everything I knew about Christianity. Now, here's the funny part about Christians and women and just how it works. He was a single man their age. I was attending another church. But I started coming to church because my mother introduced us to me. And when they found out me and him were getting married, everybody stopped coming to church. We went to 0 members. They stopped coming to church. And so they stopped coming because they felt like I was too young to get married to him when they were all single in his age. So I had to deal with that everybody I knew who taught me the word wasn't there, number one. Number two, now we moved to a whole nother city and I still don't have it. So if I'm going to the altar to pray, they're coming and they're praying over me that I'm going to be a stronger and better first lady and wife to my husband. They're not praying that he reveals himself. And so what I was saying is that his pastor friends knew. Because I talk about this, I think in book 1 or book 2, is that once I left and I became inch eye, private eye, and started doing my own research, I was wife number 5. He was still married to wife number 4.
Oh my!
So I was able to get our marriage annulled.
Oh.
And so what the other pastors knew
Lord.
was that he had done in another state with another church. He had completely destroyed a parsonage. Tore it up, and he had to write a letter to the bishop, explaining that and apologizing, and that is how he got reassigned to my area.
Well, see, this is the problem. I have a few problems with what you just said. Okay.
Just a few, Miss Michelle.
I have quite a few, but I don't have the time to go through all of them. Number one. And I understand what you're saying about the church and the women, because they weren't there for the word. They were there to find a husband. And we shouldn't be seeking him anyway, because God is going to send him.
Right.
Amen. So that was number one. So when you left, you weren't grounded to begin with. That's why they couldn't discern anything.
Right.
Because they weren't trying to discern. They were just trying to get a husband.
Yes.
Number two, when you find out that this man has been married before and is still legally married to someone else, instead of you stripping him of his title, you just send him to destroy other lives.
Well, see, they found out after I told them. They assumed, and they believed him when he said, I got divorced from my last wife. And so when you switch states and bishops and, districts, they may not necessarily call. And even though they're supposed to,
they should.
But they may not have followed. That bishop said, hey, can you do me a favor? Reverend needs a new church. Can he come over there? Oh, okay. And then he comes to a new church. And he never mentions a wife. He never mentions any of that.
And see, and don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to bash any organization, any denomination. I'm not doing that. But that's why God is a God of decency and in order. Everything is set up in order, and there's a way you do things. So you cannot skip a step because it's just easier to do a phone call. You do that background check because these are people's lives that are at stake. They're their souls. That we have to give an account. That blood will be on your hands. So it takes you maybe an extra day to call and get the right recommendations, the right information. Because again, we have to give an account when we say yes to God for these titles that we have. And the fact that I say that I tell people that I'm an elder, but I don't do it often. They do it. They know that the people who watch this show know that I am. The people who know that I am, because it's not about the titles.
Right.
Because for me, God said He'll make your name great, not your title.
That's
So I don't go off there. I like for people to get to know me,
That's
Michelle G,
Right.
and then we go from there.
right.
When people find out that later on about me, then they're like, wow, I didn't know that, but I knew
Right.
there was something.
Yes.
And that's what I'd rather have. But, we can't just take these titles and operate
them.
in them so loosely.
Yes.
Because then you have this carnage that, these bones and stuff that are left behind. These people that you have, when you get hurt in any form, whether it be spiritual anyway, it can damage you for life.
Yes.
But a spiritual hurt is one of those that breaks your very soul.
Oh yeah, I didn't go to church for a long time. I didn't go, especially not to AME Zion Church. After I left, I didn't go to church I was mad. Like, who wouldn't be mad at God? I was like, now listen here, Jesus, what's really going on? If I'm supposed to be your kid, what is you doing to me? But eventually, you grow and you understand things, you accept things, and you use it for the betterment of you. But in the beginning, yeah, I was absolutely angry.
Yeah, though He slay me, yet will I trust
Yeah.
Him. And we have to understand that He, the wheat and the tare go together. And then
Can't have one without the other.
You can't have one without the other. And He's going to do the separating. And but it just breaks my heart that they didn't take the extra step. And that was the second thing. And there's so many things just in that it just bothered me because.
And I think, go ahead.
No, you go
I was
ahead.
going to say sometimes people try to make sense out of it and make it
There
logical
there isn't any.
when
There's not.
it's not even humanly. It's not even human. Because when I'm living it, I'm like, this is like, am I dreaming this? Is this really real?
And I've been trying to make sense of it the whole time. That's why I'm like, and there is no logical reason
Right.
for it.
That's
There's
right.
no logical reason for Him being the way He is. There's no logical reason for them skipping the steps. There's no logical reason. The only sense I can make out of it is it had to be your story. It had to be you.
Yes.
Because only you, God knew what you
Yes.
can handle.
Yes.
Only you can go through that.
Oh yeah.
Because God knew, when you go through, I say it all the time to my children and everything, you go through things, but what we go through is never about us.
That's right.
It's never about us. Nothing that I've gone through, any abuse or anything that I've ever gone through was about me.
That's
It's
right.
because I'm going to run into someone along my journey that's going to be going through the same thing. And I
Yes.
can say, okay, God got me through this. Let me tell you what God did for me. So even though it's terrible and I still can't wrap my mind around what was done to you. Only you could go through
That's
that.
right. That's
Because God knew that when you got to that point, because see, everything is lined out for us.
Oh yeah.
Your destiny, every door that's already
Yes.
open, the doors are already open. We just got to make it to those doors.
Yes.
So God already knew that when she gets to that point where she leaves, when she gets right here, where I know she's going to leave when she gets right here. When she gets to that point, I know she's going to then, after she goes through her healing, I know she's going to turn that thing around and she's going to build my kingdom because she's going to help other sisters
Yes.
that's going through this.
'Cause
So
you don't
only
have
you
a
could go
choice.
through that.
You what you don't have is you don't have a choice. So once I grew in some things and realized that, number one of my, and I'm horrible, I will tell the scripture in JoJo language in a minute. But
okay.
the scripture that
I do it
says, I'm a comforter, I comforted you, so now it's your turn to go comfort somebody else. And so that's my main scripture. He comforted me, so I have to go. And then number two, when you go through something like that, you're going to learn one or two things. Either you love Jesus or you don't. You're going to find him or you're going to leave him. One of the two. And I didn't have any option but to, even though I was mad at him, he was the only thing I still had at the same time. I was mad, but I needed him. I was like, now, Jesus, you done brought me here. I'm homeless. Now what you going to do? Well, I ain't got a job. And I demanded things of God. I was like, you know what, brother? You got me here.
That's it.
So you need to fix this. And there were times when the lights was off, the water was off. And I tell people the penny story all the time. So there's this place, and it's in Raleigh, and it's called From Jesus with Love. And I found it after some church members took me, and I lived with them for 3 months. And then I was like, you know what, I need my own space. And in between that, I went through postpartum, I went through depression, all of it. But you go in the store, and for $3, Michelle, you can get food. Whatever you can carry is what you can get.
Oh, my.
So I didn't get food stamps, and I didn't have money to buy groceries because I was making $12.26 an hour. The lights was off sometimes it was the water. Sometimes I took gas out the lawnmower to put gas in the car. You know, I was struggling. Mm-hmm. And so I would go around picking up pennies, because a penny made a difference between $2.99 getting in that store and $3 not getting in that store. And the first time we went in there, me and my oldest went in there, and I didn't know. They pray for you when you first come in there. It's like, you have any prayer requests? I just want to eat. So whatever you can carry is yours. And so we go through there. The first week, we leave with barely nothing, because I got a newborn. And I said, oh, I got you. I called that church member. I said, you got some book bags? Book bag on the front and back of me. Book bag on the front and back of my 7-year-old. I put the baby in the stroller, and I had bags up under the stroller.
Listen.
So when I went in there for $3, I racked up. We had food for days, and I was the queen of making up food. And I knew for $2, if I collected enough change on the street, $2 could get me in with the Muslims. And I knew the sweet sisters, they would pat me down. I go in there with nothing but $2 worth of change in my pockets, hold up my hand so they pat me down, take my box of fruit, thank you, my brother, and I'd take it on, and we would eat. And so I told my pennies make a difference. And so I told my penny story to a group one time, and the lady was like, well, why would you tell that story? That's just so embarrassing. And then she made me feel bad because I told the story. And I was working in the hospital, and there's a chapel, and every morning I pass this chapel and I go in and pray. Every single morning I go to the altar and I say, Lord, thank you. You know, you say your little chanting prayer, and I go on about my day. And this morning, you know, usually there's a homeless person in there, but it's quiet this morning. There's nobody in there. And you got to come in. So this is the altar. You got to come in and walk up to the altar. And I come in, and this is literally the next day. And I come in there, and my head is down. I was thinking what I'm going to pray about, because I need gas. You know, you be talking to Jesus, Lord, what I'm going to ask for? Because I need gas money, I need food. You know, you're running your list down. And I walk, and I was like, somebody done left something at the altar because it was shining. Not paying any attention. I get to the altar, and there's a penny on the side that says, in God we trust. When I tell you, I cried like a baby right there in that altar. I was like, now here that was lady making me feel bad. And my penny made a whole difference. And that was just a reminder to me that, you know, he's listening. And now my oldest, wherever we are, she see pennies on the floor.
She pick it up.
Because she know that make a difference whether you're going to eat or not. So she still pick up change off the floor.
Listen, now I've been holding these cards, and my lovely guest, she was telling me about these cards. I'm just going to set these over here, because if you haven't know, I haven't flipped my card. I had some questions, but that's completely gone out the window at this point. So I'm just going to stop holding them and put them right here, and we're just going to flow with it for the rest of the show. Right. The first thing I want to comment on what you said, and it happens to a lot of us, and it happens to a lot of people, and I just want to tell someone who is out there, we are overcomers by our testimony.
Yes.
So never let anybody make you feel bad about what you went through.
That's right.
What you went through was for a reason. You can't overcome it. You can't heal from it until you talk about it, till you testify how God helped you through that. There's nothing to be ashamed about.
That's right.
We've all been through some things. We've all been through some things. So we overcome by our testimony. Don't ever let anybody make you feel bad about what you went through.
That's right.
You tell it. Because can't nobody tell it like you tell it.
Truth don't
So
change.
you tell it. There you go. And I agree with you with how you talk to God, because I was taught when I was little, you know, you don't question God. You don't answer, but yes, you can. That's my daddy. Why can't I go and ask my daddy a question? And I talk to him all the time. I said, now come on, Lord. Now look, Daddy, you said. Why this ain't happening?
If you the king and I live in your kingdom, I
Listen.
have certain rights as a citizen. So Jesus,
what you gonna do? And I just had a conversation with God
right.
just this past week about a situation I was dealing with. I said, now Lord, this is the way. I said, come on now, I didn't ask for this title. You gave this to me, but I've got some things that are hindering me and blocking me from operating in the title that you gave me. I said, now I need you to work this situation out. I said, because you don't practice nothing, you perfected everything.
Yes.
And I said, I don't expect for you to do it halfway. I expect for you to do it all the way. I says, now you need to do what you have to do in order for me to operate in the title that you gave me, because I didn't ask for this.
That's right.
I said, remember, I tried to give it back to you a few times.
That's right.
I said, so I need you to work that thing out.
That's right.
Now, we're going to go to break, but before we go to break, I just want you to, because it's been, I think I mentioned during the break that I was going to ask you about it, your daughter.
Yes.
I can't imagine, your whole story is hard to just grasp, but we understand that it had to happen the way it happened for whatever, for God's purpose.
Yes.
Your daughter having to be locked away and made to feel like she wasn't good enough to be with her own mother, to be with her sister. You know, how did she handle that, and how is she now? What steps did you take to make her okay?
She's 22 now. She's a healthy.
To God be the
she's
glory.
a healthy, getting on my nerves adult. So some of this, and we had to figure this out together. So I'm dealing with postpartum, and I got a 7-year-old. The baby cry, I cry, because I wasn't allowed to attach to her because she was a preemie, and I had so many health issues because they thought I was going to die. So it was a 2-week span when she was first born that I didn't touch her, didn't see her. And so I don't have that motherly connection even with my infant. And so I have this oldest daughter who is kind of stepping in and taking care along with the lady that I'm living with. And so I had to hurry up and figure it out. I had to get over the depression. I had to get over a lot of stuff. And I'm a fan of counseling. It took counseling. It took a lot of prayer. And it took some counseling where I had to apologize. And the way I saw it was, if she's locked up in the room, he's not hitting her, and I'll take whatever blow he want to give. So she ain't gotta deal with it. Now, me and her now are thick as thieves, but it also made her very quiet, because she was not that way at all. She was very one of those kids, like, if you don't sit your child down, you know, you gonna. So she was a very rough kid, and so now she's extremely quiet. She's extremely reserved. She's not going to speak unless spoken to until she gets to know you. And that process is going to take a long time. But she's extremely protective of me. Where you going? What time you going to be back? Who's going to be there? Don't talk to strangers. She's my mama. Mommy, I see on the GPS it says you are here. Are you aware of your surroundings? Yes, I am. But, she's very protective, and so she had to become an adult, I think, sooner than she needed to be. And two, we struggled together. So she saw me in the kitchen, even though I tried to keep things in order, she had a harder life than the youngest one. So she had a life of, I don't know, I ain't got the money, I don't have this, I don't have that. With the youngest one has no recollection of anything. Whatever she has, she thinks she's just supposed to get. And so she lived a very different life. And so it took a lot of counseling, and it took a lot of me having candid conversations with her and saying, this happened because of this, and this is how I'm going to fix this, and I want you to have a thought process of this. So it took some work.
Wow. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back, and we're going to finally touch on the author, Miss JoJo, the author. We'll be right back with the Michelle G. Show. welcome back to the Michelle G Show. Um, this show has been it's been a really touching show, and I fight back emotions because even talking with you, it takes me back. I can't even say that I've been through even half of what you've been through, but I know abuse. And like I said, I mean, I remember I didn't miss many days of school, but I remember not being able to go because I had a black eye, or my lip was swollen.
Yes.
You know, I still have like four little prongs like the fork, where I got stabbed in the knee with a fork because I introduced my stepfather as my stepfather, not my daddy. But so that that's a whole nother thing. So I understand abuse. And I'm fighting back emotions because I don't want to. Because if I get too emotional, I won't be able to continue with the show.
Right.
But my heart. That's why I asked the question about your daughter, because I know what it's like when you grow up in a situation like that, and how long it takes to rebuild and to build yourself into to realizing that you are somebody.
Yes.
It took me years, and it affected my relationships. It affected the people I had around me. It affected my children.
Yes.
Even without me trying to do that, I clung to them like a little bit too much because I was a little bit overprotective for them because of what I went through. And I didn't want them to be in any situation or be anywhere, where it could possibly happen to them.
Right.
So that's why I asked about your daughters, how she was now, because it takes a long time.
Yes.
And you touched on something. It took a lot. It took counseling. And that's something that I mentioned from here to there because we, especially in the African American community, we have an issue with counseling.
Oh, yeah.
There is nothing wrong with counseling. Sometimes you need some help. And I said this to another guest I had on a few shows back. At certain times you're going through things, and this is coming from someone who is a carrier and a preacher of the gospel. Sometimes I don't want to hear you say I'm praying for you. That I don't want to hear that. I want you to be, if you can't help me, and and there are people who call me, and they want to talk 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, and I did because that's who I am.
Yes.
So I listen, but at some point I'm like, look, you need to call this person because they are professionally trained to handle that. I can only get you here.
That's right.
But they gonna get you where you need to be.
Right.
And so for me, the counseling is a key thing.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with saying it. Doesn't mean that let me change that, because I was getting ready to say it doesn't mean that you're broken, because that's not right, because you are broken.
Well, some people think, oh, you must be really crazy if you want to go to counseling. Oh, you crazy. Well, we don't talk about it. We pray about it. And I was right with you. When I was going through, if one more person would have said, Jesus be offense, I was going to fight them. Because I don't want Jesus to be offense. I need Jesus to pay a bill. He can be offense later. I don't like that. Like, I hated you telling me those, the catchphrases in the Bible. I know that. Boy, I was married to the preacher. I know the word. Give me JoJo, step 1, I want you to go out there and do this. Step 2, that's what I needed. And so and I'm glad you said that. So when I talk to people, I tell them I can listen all day. Me giving you I'm not going to give you a catchphrase. If I can help you, I'm going to say step 1 is what you need to do. And it ain't a whole lot of, ain't no room for interpretation. Do you want to get past it or you don't? Please go do step 1, then come back and see me, because when I left my abuser and I called, the second phone call I made was to the counselor that called me mentally retarded. And I was like, I got 2 degrees, ma'am, because by this time I was mad, angry, scared, sad. I was taking it out on everybody. Ma'am, I have 2 degrees. First of all, I'm not slow. But she was like, Miss Waddell, and I hate when people talk to me calmly when I'm on 10,000. I want you to be on 10,000
too.
Yeah,
we need to be on the same level.
Yeah, can you pull it up? And she was an older white lady, And she said, okay, Miss White, I understand. I'm sorry that you're going through that. And I said, I just wanted you to know that I wasn't crazy. I'm not what he said. And I said, but I don't know what to do. She said, I said, should I go back? She said, I'm going to ask you one question. I said, what's that? And she said, do you want to live or die? I said, what? I said, but I told you to tell me what to do. She said, do you want to live or die? I said, I don't, what does that have to do with anything? She said, until you can answer that question, don't call me. And she hung up on me.
Listen.
I was hot. I wanted to go to the next city and fight her. I was like, how you hang up on me? But it made me think, do I want to live or do I want to die? Because I was thinking about, should I go back? But if I went back, I knew I was going to die. And I haven't talked to that lady since. I haven't even reached out to her. But that sentence, you know, because I talked to her the day I left. After I finished cussing, because I said some cuss words.
Sometimes,
yeah. I was like, okay, that makes sense. And sometimes, you know, that's what I tell people. We can make it complicated all we want to.
All we want to.
Sometimes the answer is very simple. It's black and white. And it is my lack of wanting to take responsibility that makes it difficult. Because I don't want to take responsibility for doing the thing that I know I need to do.
Yeah. And it's difficult taking that next step because you're going into the unknown, the unfamiliar. Yeah. Even though the situation you were in, the abuse, it was familiar. It was what you knew. So even you had to people won't they may say, well, that was a given, but you don't know. I knew this. I'm going into what I don't know, so it's not just a given. Even though I know I'm going to get beaten, I may die here, but at least I knew that. I know what to expect. You asking me to walk into something that I don't know what's going to be, you know, I'm looking for it to come at the right, and you swipe me with the left. Yeah. So, you know, it makes a difference.
One of the things I tell people all the time, either you're going to deal with the comfort of crazy, or you're going to deal with the discipline of freedom. And that's where I was at.
That's a good
comfort
one.
Comfort of crazy or discipline of freedom. And until you can answer that, I, as the Live Past Crazy specialist, I can't help you. Because I had to come to that. Either I was going to deal with the comfort of crazy or I'm both the problem and the solution. Yes, I know my problem and the answer. Because I tell people, we pray to Jesus. And this is just my little side note. We pray to Jesus, Lord, make a way, fix it. And I done been deep fried in holy oil. I'm laying on the altar. You know, you done covered me in Jesus. I done spoke in tongues. You know about the purple cloth out. You know about the white cloth out. I have done all the things, Michelle. And I sit up and I walk back out the door with my crazy. And when I get outside, I be like, you know what? I forgot my crazy. Let me go get it up off the altar and take it back home with me. Why you waste your breath praying if you're going to keep doing the same thing?
That's good.
Because you the problem and the solution. And you waiting for Jesus to give you a miracle. Lord, make this man right. And the miracle was I woke up this morning. I am the miracle. He said, Jojo, you it, baby. And until you decide to do the work, I can't do
exactly. That's it.
Nothing else. I can't do anything else.
And that's the key thing. We ask God for a lot of things. Now, certain things that only He can work out.
Right.
But while He's working, you got to be doing something too. You can't keep asking God, I want you to do, you know, you're a way maker, you're a miracle worker, you know, and I believe the word, and I believe that I can ask Him and He's going to, because He's my Father. But I got to do some things too. You got to take those steps. You got to do that. And like you said, you know, that thing that the lady said to you, it was profound. It doesn't take all that. I'm not one that remembers scriptures, but thank God for the Holy Ghost, because He reminds me of certain things to say when I need to say them.
Right.
But when you come to talk to me, and I guess that, you know, that's what I've been told, that we come because we know you're not going to sugarcoat it, and you're going to tell us what we need to hear, and you're going to move. Because when you call me, the first thing I'm going to say, are you ready for what I have to say? And if you're ready, then we can continue. If not, then call me back when you're ready. Because I'm not going to go through all these changes with you, and you're not going to continue to call me 5-10 times when we go through the same thing. I just told you this last week. And I got this thing, you know, this new thing that I tell people, look, and it was something that a guest of mine said, you know, and she actually wasn't a guest on this show. It was a guest I had on another show, and I stand by that now. Even with the counseling thing, you know, you'll go in circles when you keep going over the same thing. I say, you know, we know the for the lack of a better word, the saucer and the cup. And we know that the saucer's there to catch the overflow. I can give you from my saucer.
Yes. That's
I
right.
no longer give people from my cup.
That's right.
Because if I continue to give you from my cup, who's going to refill me?
That's right.
So what spills over, that's why I tell people, look, this is what I'm going to tell you. If you want to get out of this, you need to do 1, 2, 3. ABC, however you want to look at it.
That's right.
If you don't do it, but don't call me 3 months down the line when I done told you to do 1, 2, 3 and ABC, and you got me up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. There's some people I honestly, and they know I love them, but I don't answer their calls no more. Because we've been going through this same cycle for 5 years. And I've been telling you the same thing for 5 years. You're not ready. You done drunk out my cup so much. I don't have honey, if you can't take this sip out the saucer, I don't have nothing to give you. That sauce is what you're going to sip out of. I can't, and you need to call me at a decent hour because you're not getting no more 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning calls.
You got to be protective of your energy. I talked about this morning. When we wake up every morning, you get 100% in your energy basket, right? Now, you can go shopping in your store. And in your store is your husband, your wife, your kids, your job. Everybody got to get a percentage of that 100%. Yeah. Now, if you give 50 to Sally, and you know Sally is addicted to her crazy because she done built a cage around it and painted it hot pink because she love it.
Listen.
That's on you that you done spent 50% of your energy on. But then you're mentally exhausted by it, and you don't know why. That's because that 50 that was supposed to go to you, you just gave away to somebody else.
Exactly. It's so good. I love how you describe crazy. And I believe that we all have a little bit of that crazy in us.
Your crazy doesn't have to be mine. Your crazy,
I got
whatever
some crazy.
it is,
I got some crazy.
It's defined however, it could be your kids on your lap. My kids now, and speaking of counseling, I'm a fan of mental health, my mental health days. Now, I called it peopling. When I have peopled enough for the day, meaning I have dealt with all the people I can handle on this here day. I come in the door, and the girls will say, "Hey, Mom," I go, They automatically, because I got signals. You already know, I can't muster now nothing for you. Please let me go. And my bathroom is my safe place. I go in there, and I stay in that shower till ain't no more hot water. And you best not open up that door till I open up that door.
Listen.
And there's been times where I hear a knock, and I know they done left food. I open the door, I get the food out, and I shut the door back. And when I'm ready to people again, and they know the rules, is you dead, dying, about to die, bleeding to death. If you don't meet them 4 criteria, you cannot come into my bathroom. Listen. And then when I come out, I'm a good mama. I can then give you what you need. Until such time, I'm not going to be. My crazy is on. It's too much for you.
Too much. You can't handle it.
The shower became my safe place. And so some days like, "Mommy, we hear your meditation bells." I said, "Honey, I need all the bells and whistles Mommy can get." So, but that's what you have to do. And so your crazy doesn't have to be my crazy. You can define it however you want, but there is life after crazy. Yeah,
there is life after, and we're learning that. This is so good. It just really, really is good because my crazy is. And my kids usually get the butt of my crazy because I have all this stuff going on here. They don't know what I went through in my day, but at the same time, I had to take a moment to realize I don't know what they went through in their day too. So it's not fair for me to come in and then just But at the same time, they have to understand it's not fair for you to jump on me when I walk in the door. You need this, And I run all the time with my kids.
Yes.
So sometimes you just.
So they know the rules. I tell them the rules. They know the rules.
They know the rules, but and you like you said, everybody's crazy isn't the same. But we all have crazy. So don't live under the umbrella of that. You don't have crazy. We all have crazy. You need to identify your crazy and figure out how you're going to deal with your crazy.
And we have a blueprint for that, Miss Michelle. We have a blueprint to live past crazy.
We're going to hear about the blueprint. We're going to listen to the what's the blueprint?
So there's 5 steps to live past crazy. Okay. And into the 5 steps, you get to develop your own blueprint of how you want to live past crazy. Because now this is the fun part and or the scary part or all the above because you get to develop new rules to the new you. But the first thing to get past crazy, number 1, is you got to be quiet. You got to just stop for 2 seconds because we go. And people say, well, I ain't heard from Jesus. I've been praying. And I ain't heard from him. Let's see, you got up and you talked to yourself. I'm fat, I'm ugly, I hate my hair. Look at this, what I'm going to wear today. Lord, these look ugly. You get in the car. You fussed at the kids, you turn on the radio. You done talk to your mama, you got to work. People got on your nerve. You get back in the car. Even at lunchtime, you talking to people in drive-thru. You listening to something, you get in the car going home. You're on the phone with your mama, your man, your sister. You get in the house, the kids on your nerve. Then you sit down, oh, Lord, let me sit down and watch TV. You get in the bed, Lord Jesus, and the next thing you know, it's 6 a.m. When was you quiet to even hear that answer? So, number one, you got to be quiet. Number two, you got to write it down. I realized the amazing thing with journaling is once you write it down, an amazing thing happens. You get to turn the page and leave it on there. I get a clean slate in the morning. I can write whatever I want on that paper. I was like, what? Jesus, really? Oh, let me write something good. And so what I do, if I'm going to write something bad, the next day I'm writing something good. So if I got 30 days of bad, I also got 30 days of good. So on my low day, I can open up that journal and be like, oh, JoJo, you was the bomb on this day, girl. You was doing, and you got to have. And so those little things help me to, because my crazy don't stop just because I live past it. It just may be, I can get past it faster now because I had the 5 steps and I can get past. I can breathe, I can journal it in my head, I can work through it, I can be quiet, all in the span of 5 or 6 minutes. And you never know I done went through the steps of crazy, but I'm smiling at you now because I'm past it.
And thought came in my mind. I'm like, I wonder did she go through her steps while she was sitting up here on stage?
Yeah.
She said, I'll never know.
Yeah,
you never know. We're going to take a quick break, and I promise when I come back, we're going to talk to JoJo the author.
Yes.
So we'll be right back with the Michelle G Show. Welcome back to the Michelle G Show. The show is coming close to an end. We ran a little bit over tonight, and I'm grateful because we needed to. This is a discussion that needed to be talked about, and this is a story that needs to be heard. We're going to talk to JoJo, the author. We're going to, briefly go over her books that she has out and what their purpose is. But before that, I decided to go ahead and do my baggage claim moment. Those who haven't watched the show before, the baggage claim moment is it's pertaining to my book, Baggage Drop the Weight. And it's when you find those things that you are carrying that have been weighing you down and you want to release them, you want to, drop that weight off of you. I usually will pull a tag from my box of something that somebody has written me that they want to drop. But what I want to talk about tonight is the baggage of abuse. As women and men, because we're not going to just single it out because there are men who have been abused as well. Anyone who has gone through abuse, you carry that baggage. Yes. As you heard my wonderful guest talk about, and you've heard me be a little bit transparent on the show tonight about abuse, that's something that you carry for a long time if you don't learn how to drop it. It took prayer. It took realizing that I was carrying it. And that's the hard part. When you think you've gotten over it, when you think you have moved past, or you've been delivered from, or you've been free from that thing, it could take one situation, one word that would make you relive that whole situation all over again. So what I want to say to someone out there who may be going through abuse right now, who may be facing a situation, you don't know which way to turn. God is your friend. He hears and he sees. I know we go through a stage or a time where we're angry, because I was angry at God. I had the foundation because I went to church when I was younger, but I think that was one of the reasons I stayed out of church, because I didn't understand how can he allow that to happen to me when I was a child and I didn't ask for that. I went through the phase of blaming myself. I went through the phase of holding in a lot of resentment. There's a lot of different stages to that. But at the end of the day, what got me through it was God. I had to turn and go back to him. He never left me. Even through all of the abuse, he never left me. I left him. So I had to figure out where I left him, go back to where I left him, and then ask him to heal me. Show me how to forgive. Show me how to let it go. Show me how to walk forward. I am not my abuse. I'm not the victim. And I turned it around because we are more than conquerors. That's his word. So I had to turn that thing around, but God taught me how to do that. So for somebody who's going out there, take that first step. Seek help. Seek help. There are numbers out there for abuse. You can go to the local hospitals. You can go to the police. You need to tell somebody. But make sure that you're safe when you do it. You know whatever situation you're in. You know that there's going to be a little bit of a break time where you can get out. If it takes you some time to just plan it to where you know you can get out. And when you get out, you run like and it literally means you run like your whole life depends on it. You don't worry about what you're leaving behind. Just like my guest here, you may not be able to take everything. Take what's on your back and get out. No one deserves any form of abuse, whether it be verbal, and it starts with something simple like, you're so fat, you're ugly. I've heard that. I've heard so many times that I was never going to be nothing. But look at me now. You're watching me, Michelle G.
A to the man.
I was told that I was ugly. Sweetheart, there is nothing ugly about me. Look at this smile. You can't pay for that. I was told all those things with verbal abuse. It can start as something simple as that. And that they don't realize just those simple words. They say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt. That little rhyme we used to say when we were kids, that's a lie. Words do hurt. And the thing about a physical scar, it can heal. But those words can damage you for the rest of your life. Whatever abuse you may be facing or dealing with or in right now or have faced in your past, it's time to stop carrying that abuse, that baggage of abuse. Drop that weight. Find someone, a counselor, someone a trusted voice, and let someone know what's going on so you can get out. And if nothing else, if you don't take nothing else from this, it is not your fault. You didn't ask for it. You didn't deserve it. It's not your fault. It took years. I blamed myself. Well, maybe if I didn't wear my shorts were to my knee. Maybe if I didn't wear, maybe if I had worn them further down, or maybe if I completely covered up. No. It was not my fault, and it's not your fault. Seek help. There's nothing wrong with getting counseling, but you gotta speak. Sometimes, like I said at the beginning of the show, nobody knows what goes on behind closed doors. It's time for you to open that door. Get out. Let God close it behind you. And when God closes it, it ain't going to be reopened. So open that door. Walk out of it and go get you some help. We're gonna finish our discussion with Miss Waddell. And you guys, I've been fighting emotions this whole show. And even talking just like I just talked a few moments with the baggage claim, it just stirs up all those emotions. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that I haven't healed from it. Mm-hmm. I'm human. Mm-hmm. When you think about it, it's just like having a scab. If you mess with that scab and you knock it off, it's going to hurt. Mm-hmm. But that don't mean that underneath that skin ain't healed. That initial shock of you breaking that scab, it's gonna send a little pain. Mm-hmm. So that's just what happened. I just reflected. I'm not there. I know I'm not a victim. I'm victorious. That's right. I'm no longer there. So because I talked about it and I feel the emotions of it, if I didn't feel the emotions of it, I couldn't say that I was human. That's right. So don't get it twisted. Don't get it wrong. I'm emotional because it brought up the memory. Mm-hmm. And I can't, and I never forget about it because I never want to forget that it happened. Because then I'll forget to be mindful of certain things. And I have children and I have grandchildren. So you still have to be mindful. So I just want to clear that up. It doesn't mean that I'm still there. So, going on from that, the books.
Yes.
We're going to talk to JoJo, the author. We've been supposed to talk to her about being an author for about 30, 40 minutes now, but we're going to get to that now.
It's all the same.
Tell us about your book.
Okay. So I've written 2 books. So the first one is Fearless Woman, Born to Give Thanks. And I wrote that book just to tell my story. because I have a quote. You know how you talk to yourself?
Mhm.
And so a thought came to me. Somebody's waiting on me to move, and they will not move until I move. And
Mm.
so that meant I had to tell whether I wanted to or not. A sister was going to die if I did not tell my story. And so when it became that serious, I wrote the book. And so I wrote book one, Fearless Woman Born to Give Thanks. And it takes you, it's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. If you Google it, it's out there. So it takes you through my whole life, going through the abuse in my marriage, and I kind of leave you hanging at the end of book one. I kind of leave you hanging with me walking into the courtroom, um, about to face my abuser for the first time since I left him.
Oh wow.
And so then this is where book two comes in. This is Transition to Freedom, and this is part two of this book. So in Transition to Freedom, um, this was the hardest book to write. And I thought book one would be hard because, you reliving it, but book two was the hardest just because when you think about all the things the steps that you actually went through to do things, you realize that you really should be crazy, like for real, you should be crazy. So in book two, I pick up in the courthouse where no attorney would represent me because they all said my husband was too crazy, and they was like he would kill us. So I figured, I read this quote when I first left my abuse. It says, "Don't let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do," by John Wooten. And I was like, well, I can read. I got an English degree and a business degree. So let me read the laws for the state of North Carolina. And so I read the laws on domestic violence for the state of North Carolina. And I went in that courtroom, and I tell people, you got to develop a color story. Because the first time I went to court, I was crying, I was screaming, and sheriff's deputy had to carry me in the courtroom. And she said, baby, I'm a big black woman with a gun. He ain't going to hurt me. And I was like, he going to kill all of us. And she was like, baby, I got a gun. He ain't going to kill me. She carried me into the courtroom the first time. The second time, I had learned the laws for myself. I came in there with a hot pink suit, hot pink shoes, and I represented myself and won my case. And I was so excited. And so book two so what I ran into with book one is a lot of people didn't believe my story. They thought it wasn't real. And so in here we have some of the actual court documents in here because, just because you leave your abuser, sometimes the crazy doesn't end. And so it's hard for me because I didn't realize just how much danger me and the girls were in because, I did everything the counselor told me. He still found where I lived at. He still found me. And that didn't stop him. And then when I did find an attorney that wanted to help me, money was scarce. And my family hates when I tell this part of the story, but, truth is part of who I am. And so this attorney said, well, I can help you, $500 retainer. I said, okay, but you need to cash this check today. Like, it's 501 in there, and you better go get your $500. And so he took my deposit, but he never represented me. And the check bounced. I forgot about it. He sent letters in the mail, and I was like, I need to call that attorney. Woo. I need to call him, but I sure ain't got $500. I need to call that attorney. So life went on. I'm in the middle of my master's degree. I was finishing up my master's. Yeah, I'd already graduated. I was in my PhD program. And there's a knock on the door at 10:13. I was like, who is it? Well, it's Wake County Police Department. Police? I live in a retired neighborhood where I'm the youngest person. Every day is 70 and older. Open up and the police is there to arrest me for writing a bad check. And I have to call my 75-year-old neighbor to come take care of the kids. And I go to jail. He was like, baby, you don't need nothing but your card and your ID. You can bond out. I was like, it had been over 2 years. I forgot about it. Went to jail, mug shot, orange suit, and all. And I stayed in jail for almost 32 hours. And when it's really something on TV because, they give you a bag and you got on the slippers and you get a mat. You remember those mats you used to sleep on when you was a kid?
Oh, yeah.
In kindergarten? They give you a
ones.
little mat, and he gave me a bag full of underwear and socks. And all of it was so big, I was trying to tie knots on it to keep it together. And I had to sleep because all the rooms were taken, so I had to sleep on the floor. And they was like, well, you can just sleep here. And, the girls came out, You gonna eat that? I said, no, ma'am. You can have all. And so I didn't eat at all during that time. But so this is how in transition of freedom I talk about all of that and some of the things that I went through just to get past crazy. But this was for sure the hardest one.
Hardest one.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got to end the show. I hate it, but it is time to go. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you. I've had a good time.
It has been a pleasure. Whew, I commend you.
Thank you.
I commend you because, whew,
It's been a roller coaster.
oh, can you just briefly tell the audience where they can find you,
Okay.
where they can watch your show, and then we're gonna close out.
Okay. You can catch me, of course, if you put in Jan Mitra, JoJo Waddell, the Only Live Past Crazy special. So what better place to be than here with me? If you Google that, I promise I'm gonna come up. So JANMETRA, and then on Facebook every Monday through Friday, 7:15 a.m. We have the Fearless Morning Show, but I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We even have a YouTube channel called the Fearless Morning Show, so you can go over there and join. For your family that doesn't do social media, but they'll watch a video, I load up all the shows to the YouTube channel.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming
Thank
on the
you.
show. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yes.
You guys watch her show. I'm going to start tuning in because I just love it. I love it. Go buy her book. I'm going to be ordering her books because I want to read this story. Because I know the book is going to tell more detail than we were
Yes.
able to discuss on the show. But thank you guys for listening and watching the Michelle G Show. I'm going to leave you with what I always say. You're not for everybody. Everybody's not going to get with you, and that's okay. You're meant for somebody. There is somebody out there for you. And just remember, you may not be everyone's cup of tea, but you're definitely someone's special brew.
That's right.
Thank you, and I'll see you next month on the Michelle G Show.
I like that.